Oh, there's definitely things that irritate.
Yeah,
Oh, you
throw
know
me
what
something.
irritates me? You know what just came to my mind first?
What?
And you're gonna yell at me, and I'm
No.
not. This isn't a bit. I just think it's ridiculous. I know Souls games
I
should have
knew it.
games.
I knew it the second I heard. I just really think she was like, "How do I touch this one carefully?"
No, listen. I understand. Truly, I do understand. I understand the whole get good. Like we want the game to be this way. My whole thing is that it doesn't hurt your experience if somebody else is having a different one. You can play your game however you want. Just don't. It translates into real life. What someone does with their life does not affect you. So leave it alone. If they get something that you can't have, actually, no, it's not even like that. If they get something, you're like, oh, I'm so mad you have that. It's like, you could have it too. It just pisses me off. People are like, no, there can't be an easy setting because that takes away from what I did. It's like, well, that's just very selfish of you because you can still have the same exact experience and still love it and still play it on a hard difficulty and still brag about it that you did it. Then someone else can have it in a way that they can actually play and enjoy it. It's just very gatekeepy to me, and I don't like it. I understand that you want your game to be hard and you're happy that you can play it. But if it's an option, if the devs came and were like, oh, we're making the game default easier for everyone, obviously, no, that's a problem. You have more health, or your hits, like your damage is increased. Like, it's just like small changes that make the game more accessible for other people. Think about how many more people Elden Ring could have done what it did for you, for them, if they weren't getting like caught up with bosses. Like God of War has this really cool feature that's like called boss fatigue or something, where if you die to a boss, you reset and your boss is where like at their halfway point for their health. So you have to get the boss down to their halfway point for this to work. But if I die in between their halfway and their zero, when I respawn, the boss fight starts from the beginning with their halfway health. So it gets rid of that fatigue of getting stuck in this loop of you playing over and over again, getting so mad to the point where you're just like, I'm done for the day. Like, I'm angry. I'm supposed to be having fun playing games. That boss fatigue feature takes away some of that.
I think it's the equivalent of being like, I want to go to an escape room, but I think they should leave the door open so that I have the option to escape if I don't want to solve the puzzle.
It's just asking for hints. The escape room doesn't change in any way.
No, if you leave
And
the
when you
door
go to
open for the escape
there's
room,
different difficulty rooms. So there's a hard room for you that wants it to be impossible, and there's an easier room for a beginner.
and I would argue that if
It
you want
doesn't
to
hurt your
play,
experience though. You can go in your escape room and you can take 50 hours to solve it and come out and be like, I did that. And someone can go into their escape room that's similar but a little bit easier
yeah.
and come out and solve it. And then you two can still have your own experiences.
But what you're suggesting is akin to if we went to an escape room and they had designed it to be, you know, a challenging escape room, and we knew we were going into it. We signed up to say, all right, yeah, we're gonna do the challenging
Nobody signed
room.
up for that. Nobody signed up to not
Anyone
have
buying
accessibility.
Elden Ring is buying the game with the understanding.
Your game if you're able to physically play it or not before you buy it.
Yes, but that's not really much of a thing anymore. Easy mode existing, I am fully in support with. But if the developers are making a game with the intent of it being hard, and they want it to be hard, yes, that is quite literally what the Souls games are. That's what From Software's goal is. That's why they intentionally put trolly things in the games where, like, you fight a boss or you beat a boss and then all of a sudden it's like, teehee, nope, like, this wasn't the actual boss, there's somebody else. So that's what I was using the escape room analogy to say was, it's like if we went to an escape room and we intentionally signed up for an escape room that was difficult. And then when we got in there, we were like, man, I wish they had a secret door we could open just to get out and leave because this is too hard. Well, then we should have signed up for the easier room.
Your option, if you want to play the Elden Ring and there's no other option for you, you just don't get to play it. You're just stuck.
But
Not
I think if you're not
play that type of game though, and I think it's just rude, especially today's date, to just alienate people that might not be able to play it. It's just, I don't know.
I mean, I could argue that Paw Patrol Adventure Race is too easy, and I want a challenge, and the game doesn't have any kind of a challenge for me because there's only one mode. So why didn't they make a hard mode on Paw Patrol where the characters are harder to beat in the races?
That's different though. Wanting your experience to be harder and then wanting it to be easier so you can actually play it. I think.
But what if you're somebody who wants to immerse yourself in a game experience and the game is super easy where it's not even worth your time, and you buy it and you beat it in, you know, in 3 hours, and you're like, man, I just spent money on this game.
Beat it and play it. My point is that people can't play Elden Ring because they just can't. They're just not as good. I don't know.
The developers don't want the games to have that. And again, I know we differ on this point, and that's okay, but this is your opinion and your grievance, and I agree with you. I think gatekeeping as a whole, so if you're talking about people online that are like, oh, you know, right, this is yes, and I don't support that. I think gatekeeping is one of the worst things on social media. Nicole shouldn't be able to play this game because she, you know, they should make this game harder, or Nicole shouldn't play because she's not good at Souls games. Like, no, you try, you get into it.
All I'm saying is it doesn't hurt. I don't like the argument that they're like, I want it to be this way. It's like, oh, that's fine, but like you can have it be this way, but then also have an option that it's not that way. Like you can still have your vision. And then it doesn't really take that much to make it an option. But I
think, in fairness, we agree to disagree on this point, and that's okay. That's the beauty of opinions in gaming. Nicole's allowed to feel that way, and I feel differently. But I also think, as a whole, accessibility and openness in games is good. Having an easy mode as an option is good, as in a game that it's there. I'm not going to gatekeep people who play on easy because they just want to take the story. That's that this game is actually meant to be played a certain way. Sort of like Super Mario Maker, where it's like people made levels in that game that were designed to be hard. Like, that's the point. I
just don't think that was communicated well enough for how big of a deal Elden Ring became. The other Souls games, yes, but Elden Ring was like, for some reason, got caught up in like that hype cycle that people, like everyone, no matter who you were, was like, oh my god, Elden Ring. And people were just like super hyped for that. And I think there was just a lot of, which not the developers' fault, but it's just a lot of it because I don't know. I feel like 9 out of 10 games, maybe even more than that. I'd say like 90% of like modern games that have the same style of like open world or just like RPG have difficulty settings. And I think you'll find more often than not that games have them and then instead of don't. So I think it's just like become a standard today to have accessibility options and to have difficulty options. So like when you have a game this renowned that like people are like, go play this game, and it's like, oh, but I can't, and they're like, too bad, eat shit and die. It's like, okay, well, never mind.
Yep. And I would say too that the hype thing is definitely not on the developers, kind of like you said, like you acknowledge it as well. That they made a game and the internet was like, oh my god, this is coming out, you got to play this, and the hype train and the ball gets rolling, and then it's like, well, everyone's like, wow, this game's fucking hard, I can't play this. Well, you know, my
criticism is with like the online,
which is a bit
opinion about it, and it's just like
a bit more fair. Yeah, I think that's fair, and I appreciate and almost agree with that clarification a little bit more, because I think to blame the developers is one thing, which I just don't agree with. To blame people online being like, hey, you know, you can't play this game, or this game should be hard because I did it, so you shouldn't be able to play it easy. That's a whole different conversation.